and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm going to be filming something for you that has been requested probably about 30 times in the comments of one of my videos. If you haven't already checked out my first video of this channel, you'll see I propagated a very large and very variegated Monstera albo. So as an example, this is the kind of plant that we're talking about here. So if anyone is not sure of what this looks like, it is a Monstera deliciosa plant which has a variegation, so presenting itself with these kind of white segments which are basically where the leaf chlorophyll is missing in certain areas. Certain areas can be in more lack of chlorophyll than others, which is basically what explains the mint kind of colours here or the white colours here. So if you haven't already watched it, I would suggest watching it before finishing off this one. So without kind of further ado, I'm just going to go straight in with what actually happened to those cuttings, because I haven't shared it with anyone, and it wasn't the best story, to be completely honest. So how about this? We'll start with the backstory and then we will go into the tea. So backstory is, I actually run and own a business in houseplants. I have my very own business selling rare, often variegated, often really special, sometimes just super common and super lovely houseplants, and I do a lot of propagation and a lot of growing to make sure these plants are amazing for my customers. If you ever want to check it out, there is the link in the description. But this is therefore something that's not new to me. To be honest, I'm not new to propagating Monstera albo. I've done it for quite a long time, as I have many other propagation methods. Not all of them I'm good at, and I'll be honest, everyone makes mistakes, and that's why I'm here to share this today with you. So part 2, spilling the tea. I hope you've got some tea or your desired drink with you whilst you watch this, because it's definitely a juicy story. So what actually happened? I took those 5 cuttings in the video. If you haven't already seen it, it's in the description, because it will explain a lot more before you watch this video. So we had all the cuttings in pond, if I'm not mistaken. I think I had one of them in water, and the one that had full-on roots at the bottom was in soil, or maybe pond as well. So I noticed when I first reflected on it that the first thing I did wrong was when I cut the stem of the Monstera albo, I didn't leave enough time between cutting it and waxing it. So this stem end is fragile. This is the entrance to this entire plant, and what happened was I cut it and I didn't allow the end to dry for long enough. People are often scared to let it dry longer than 2 hours, but actually it needs to be left for at least 6 hours, sometimes even 12, to allow the end to callus, and it basically creates a scab. It's kind of gross, but it basically has a scab of its own, and that's a barrier to preventing any water from getting in the stem through that entry, because you don't need water to go in through that entry. The water goes through the roots. So number 1 I did wrong was I chopped it and left it just 1, maybe 2 hours, and then I put wax on the end, which is another way of preventing water to getting in. But I did this too soon, and if you do this too soon, after, i.e. 1 hour, it's not going to have a difference, because the wax is an additional barrier, but the first and most priority barrier you need is the callus. So the callus wasn't there. I put some wax on the end. It didn't do anything, because water can still go through the wax, not through, but like there's always a little air pocket, and sometimes the wax comes off. So it ended up meaning that the wax was doing nothing, and the stems began to rot. So these stems started to rot on the ends where I cut them. And in addition to that, I also put too much water at the bottom of the pond, and the pond was in containers that did not have drainage. Drainage is the most important thing as well, because as you probably can see from the video, I had this like clear pot that was literally just a plastic cup, and it was great because you could see the roots, but it wasn't great because there's no drainage. So this meant that not only was the stem allowing lots of water in, causing rot, but also the roots were sitting quite soaking in water, which is not so good it's just not good. So like with this plant pot, this is, first of all, it's clear. Second of all, there's holes at the bottom. Oops, bit just fell out. There's holes at the bottom, there's holes on the side. It's really good because it allows the water to drain. So all in all, this then caused all the cuttings bar one to die. I'm not joking. It was dramatic. It happened within about 2, maybe 4 days. And I was like, oh my God, I've just made a whole video on these beautiful cuttings and only one of them survived. So I went away for 2 days, came back, and the plant's leaves that the green bits all went yellow. That's my first sign of root rot. In my opinion, that's what I think is root rot. Because what's happening is the roots are dead in rotten areas. So the rot causes the deadness. The deadness means nothing can be taken in. No water, no nutrients can be taken in. And therefore the leaf lacks nutrients, i.e. water. And therefore it loses its chlorophyll because the chlorophyll goes all yellow and dead because it's not got any water. So the stems rotted, the roots rotted. One of them was fine because it had a big enough stem for me to repair it, but that was only one. So all 4 of them died, which is really sad. It was even one point where I picked one of them up and the leaf just like fell off, like dramatically, like died. And I was just left with this stem, and the stem was really rotten. So it was really sad times. But anyway, let's not dwell on that. Basically, we've established that, you know, we had one survivor, the rest died. What happened to that one that survived? Well, we gave it to a lovely giveaway winner. She followed me during my 500 followers giveaway, and she won when I did the prize draw. So she won that cutting, which is great. And to my knowledge, it's doing really well. So that's good. But yeah, 5 plants, 4 died, and I live to tell the tales to you, which is what I'm going into now. How exactly can you learn from my mistakes here? And let me share some tips and tricks with you so that you can't make this mistake yourself. So, first of all, oh, this looks so cute. First of all, remember it's alive. So it needs to be treated really well and with a lot of care. So don't rush the propagation method here. My second, probably the most important one, is allow the callus to dry for 6 to 12 hours before waxing it. So allow that cut to dry. A lot of people worry that 6 to 12 hours is too long and it causes the plant to dry out. It's quite a hardy plant. Like it's not gonna take 12 hours and then be like dried out like a crisp. So don't be scared to like allow them to have as much like of 6 hours or 12 hours of just sitting dry. No water, no nothing. Allow the cut to just sit open to the air. In conjunction with that tip, you need to wax this end. I don't know if anyone needs any support with this. I know someone mentioned it once, I think on a couple of my videos, whether I could do a wax cutting tutorial. So I'm more than happy to do show you how I wax a cutting. Maybe I'll do it as a YouTube short. So if that's what you'd like and it would help any of you, let me know in the comments and I'll be able to put that together. But essentially, in a nutshell, you're gonna take the calloused dry cut. You're gonna light a little candle, could be a tea light, could be like a bigger candle, doesn't really matter. And you just dip the cut part into the wax. I would say like this much space, 5 millimeters max. This is gonna be be an extra barrier to water, not allowing it to go in, which is great. And it'll stick to it, and then you just let it dry, and then you're good to go. So it's really simple. My 4th tip is with mediums, do not worry about which medium may be better. Like in my opinion, there's no medium that's better than others. Actually more about how you use this medium, that's important. So i.e. if you use perlite or lacquer or pon, you want to ensure that you're not soaking the medium in water, because the point of that medium is that it absorbs a bit of water in the stones or in the perlite pieces, and then it holds it in those, in addition to having a little bit kind of condensed on the sides of the pot. That's what you want. You don't want it to be soaking. And my final tip would be, when you cut the stem, you always need to make sure you're giving as much space below the node, because if you incur any problems with rooting or with rotting on the stem, you will find you may need to chop the stem. Oh, all of the rotten bits, you will need to chop them away. And you will find you'll need that extra bit of stem to help you have that as a reassurance contingency plan. So use that to help you if you are taking that cutting. Give it as much stem space as possible. I think that concludes this video, and I really hope it was as insightful and dramatic as you were hoping for. If you haven't already, obviously you probably want to check out the video that is in conjunction with this one, which is the first one on my channel, but I'll link it down below. I really hope this was a helpful video and it was still educational. I know it's not my usual video format, but I also hope this answered lots of your questions, as I know many of you asked me for this video. But if there are any other videos you'd like me to do in the future, please drop that ideas down below and I'll be sure to check them out. I really hope that you have a great rest of your day, whatever you're doing, and I will see you in the next video.